All right, guys. Hi, hello. We're gonna get into it today with the religion. That's where we're at. We're moving on to the second half of Unit 3. I'm gonna go through and talk about a lot of stuff. Again, please make sure that you're kind of keeping track of things as you go, listening for the big things that you'd like me to talk more about on Thursday, things that are confusing or that you want more information on overall. Okay, so we're gonna just dive right in. So this right here is looking at a distribution map where you can see kind of the big sweeping distribution of religions. Again, this will be important to know kind of in the general area where various different religions are kind of more prevalent than others. I'm hoping that this is not a shocking image to you guys, but important to kind of keep in mind. So let's just get into it. Okay, so religion, of course, is another major aspect of culture. Just like language is, it is a mentifact. Again, that idea of something you can't hold in your hands, but it is evidence of things that make us different or pull us together. Religions in general are just they're a set of customs and beliefs that kind of move a person's life, and overall it influences choices. When we talk about religions overall, there's the basic fundamental religion, and like language, it's a living thing. It moves and changes over time. It breaks down into branches, is the first. These are the large fundamental divisions. They still have that fundamental belief or idea in common, but they've decided to go in different directions. Then after that, branches can break down into denominations. Denominations are, again, it's this division of a branch, and it's united by a number of local congregations into kind of like a single legal administration body. A lot of this comes kind of down to the ability to keep track of people and where they're at and what they're doing. And then there is also another kind of breakdown called a sect. This is a small group that's sort of broken away, and by the time you make it to that division of a basic religion, it looks so different. It almost feels not connected. So there is a really kind of big breakaway, again, of a difference going in a different direction. Religions around the world can be sorted into two big categories. There's universalizing religions, which is a religion where everyone can become a member, and actually they want that. There's like an active, again, attempt to try and convert people, trying to bring people into the fold. Again, the three main universalized religions are Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam. And then there are ethnic religions, which are smaller scale for the most part. They're, again, most of them are closely connected to a particular ethnicity or group. And with ethnic religions, they're, again, smaller scale. They don't really want outsiders joining. So if you are going to be part of this religion, you're either born into it or you could marry into it, but that's again, not as easy to do. Another, I guess, grouping that you could see or you could hear about is the idea of traditional religions or tribal religions. Again, these are ethnic, they fit into that, but they're even smaller scale, and they're really concentrated, and they're usually the most kind of basic, I would say. They're not as complex as a lot of religions have become over time. It's kind of a combination of different beliefs of the group or the tribe, with animism, which I'll talk more about, and then any other kind of imposed religions. So with traditional tribal religions, you get kind of a strange mixture of beliefs. Some of them are religious in nature, some of them are more, I guess, philosophical or just, again, social, to create something new and unique, unconnected to any one source. So we're going to go in and we're going to kind of hit on the various different religions that are out there. Some of you guys already put that into questions and concerns. So please use this PowerPoint as kind of your jumping off point. So the first one here is animism. Animism is an ethnic religion, and it is the belief in spirits, including ancestral spirits. So the idea that your ancestors, once they passed on, they're still around, and these spirits live in the natural world. So assigning a spirit to the river and to the harvest and to certain animals, things like that. That's animism. Again, when I think about that, I think of like animated. I know this is kind of goofy, but like an animated film where you have talking trees. Again, that's kind of what this is going for overall. There's a lot of little, again, groupings, places where animism is still practiced, as you can see there. The next one is shamanism. Shamanism is a form of tribal religion, again, ethnic, that reveres a particular person that has special healing or magical powers. So, shamanism assigns kind of a particular individual with basically power to be able to heal and to, again, give guidance and things like that. You can still find this in small groups in North Asia, so thinking the more isolated places. You got secularism, which is kind of a funny religion in the fact that it's not. The belief is that there is no religious belief system out there that works. Secular is the idea of worldly view. So instead of being concerned with the beyond or the unseen, you're concerned with what's around you. Secularism is something that is kind of on the rise, especially in Europe. More and more people are giving up their ties to religion and again moving on and saying that, well, religion is there's other things we need to focus on. Again, secularism obviously sounds a little bit like atheism, agnosticism, so on and so forth, and they are similar. That's just what it comes down to. It depends on how you identify in the long run. So the next ethnic religion is the largest one that exists. It's also the oldest religion that is out there. The hearth of this particular religion is going to be the Indus River Valley in South Asia, which is India. Okay, it's polytheistic and it's very complex. As I said, again, most of the other ethnic religions are a little bit, I don't know, more straightforward. Hinduism, Judaism, they're the ones that are like really, there's just like a lot of different rituals and holidays, all that kind of stuff. Again, when we talk about the diffusion of Hinduism, we're going to see that it's contagious first, which is not as common. Where the Indian subcontinent, it was like everybody converted to Hinduism when it was introduced. And then relocation as people moved from India to Southeast Asia, again, Bali, various other places. They do have some sacred sites. So a lot of this, again, terminology should sound familiar. So when we talked about religions initially, again, temples, shrines, there isn't a one singular person who created Hinduism. Again, fits more into the idea of folk culture where we don't know exactly anything beyond the practice itself. The modern concentration is 80% of all Hindus live in India still. So there hasn't been a lot of movement, and if it has been, it's very small scale. Another thing to understand about Hinduism, I'm going to talk more about this later because it's important in a large scale, is the idea of the caste system. The caste system is a social hierarchy that is created through Hindu belief. So a caste is a social class. So you have the upper classes, the middle, and then the lower. The thing about this is, like I said, is it is directly connected to Hindu belief. It's based off of karma. Again, if you have good karma, bad karma, those are all traditional Hindu beliefs. And each caste, when you're born into it, it controls your whole life. What food you can eat, clothing you can wear, the people you can talk to, the jobs you can get. It's very restrictive. Okay, the other big ethnic religion to know is going to be Judaism. Judaism is Again, it comes later from Hinduism, and the hearth is in Southwest Asia, the Middle East. Again, specifically thinking modern day Israel. It's the oldest monotheistic religion, mono being one God. That's what we got here. The sacred site is Jerusalem. That's where it all kind of began. And then, of course, synagogues, cemeteries, things like that. The important thing to understand about the Jewish faith is that it is exceptional in a lot of ways. It doesn't match ethnic religions in, again, a handful of different places. One, it does match origin. We don't know for sure kind of who is the first person to create Judaism. We do know where and we do know when. It's the distribution, which is really odd compared to other ethnic religions because Judaism is practiced in pockets all around the world. But that wasn't because they wanted it like that. They had to. The diaspora is a something that happened to the Jewish people repeatedly throughout history, where they would be persecuted for practicing a religion that was too different. So they'd be like chased out and again killed and threatened time and time again. They are the world's oldest refugees, and they settle everywhere that they can. The homeland, though, is Israel. Again, it was created specifically for them after World War II. After again, like thousand years of persecution, they got their own country back. Moving on, we're going to move into our universalizing religions. Again, the thing about religion, it has a lot of those same characteristics to folk and pop, where you can see that origins of universalizing religions are going to be much more, I guess, distinct. You know exactly who started them and when they started and where they started. And again, a lot of the belief system and the spread and stuff like that, you're going to sort of see. Okay, so it began with the birth of Jesus, again, the Messiah promised by God. Again, this is coming out of Judaism. All right, it's universalizing. It believes in one God and one God alone. It starts in the same place basically as Judaism because the Jewish people were still there, and the expansion or the spread of it, the diffusion, is going to be kind of interesting because, well, I mean, it just has a wider reach than any of the religions we talked about thus far. So the first diffusion happens through expansion, through the Romans. It starts with hierarchy and then it moves into contagious. And then after that, all of the spread of Christianity is going to be through relocation of missionaries into other parts of the world. So you've got the Spanish bringing it to the New World, again, thinking North America. You've got the British bringing it to South and East Asia, to the Pacific Islands. And then you've got missionaries going to Africa, Latin America, places where it hadn't gone yet. Another thing about Christianity, of course, is that it is broken down. The first major split into branches happens in the 15th, 16th century, seeing, again, the Protestant Reformation, where the creation of Protestantism, again, the Protestant branch, and then that branch quickly devolves into denominations like Lutheran and Calvinism and things like that. There's also the English Reformation, which takes the Protestant faith and then takes it in a different direction, which is the Anglican Church, so on and so forth. As far as sacred sites, there are the places connected to Jesus, which will always be considered sacred. Jerusalem, where he died, Bethlehem, where he was born. Other sort of sacred sites, cathedrals, Spanish missions, Protestant church, monasteries, lots of them. There's a lot of them. Again, Christianity is everywhere. Next is Islam. Again, Islam is going to be, again, it's just another offshoot of monotheistic religion. Again, that's coming and based off of the teachings of Muhammad. Muhammad was a prophet, kind of similar to Abraham or Moses, David, if you are familiar with the teachings of Christianity. Again, the hearth is the same. It's in Southwest Asia. The holy book is the Quran. The Quran can be spelt more than one way. Please don't be thrown by that. Again, it's the sacred book of Islam, just like the Bible is the sacred book of Christianity, and the Torah is the sacred book of Judaism, so on and so forth. With Islam, again, it's possible that you might see some reference to the 5 pillars of Islam. So these are like their 5 basic tenets. If you're, again, more familiar with Christianity, there's the 10 commandments. these are like that, I would say, but a bit bigger scale. Again, so the 5 things that all Muslims must do within their lifetime is agree that there is only one God. Easy. They must pray 5 times a day, always facing Mecca, which is going to be the sacred site. Again, one of the sacred sites, which I don't have listed, which is weird, but we'll talk about that. They have to observe Ramadan, which just ended not that long ago. Again, if you're Snapchat kids, which I'm assuming a lot of you are, you might have seen that story of around the world. Ramadan is fasting. You got to give to the poor, and then you got to go visit Mecca before you die. Mecca is the birthplace of this whole religion. Um, as far as spread goes, it happened mostly through expansion, diffusion, a lot of conquering, again, through the Middle East and then over into Asia. You had various groups come in. Basically, the Arab Empire, the empire of Islam, was massive, and what we consider to be the Middle East today is the remnants of that. So you see that through hierarchy, diffusion, it's going to kind of break down through populations. You see it again in the Ottomans in Eastern Europe and then into Spain. So seeing again that spread of conquering and then relocation, trade, human migration. They don't missionaries in Islam aren't really the same thing. They do want people to again become part of Islam. That's definitely an aspect of it, but it's not as how to describe this. It's not like a priority, I would say. They kind of think that their religion speaks for itself. It is broken into 2 branches. We've got Sunni and Shiite. Sunni is the big one. Again, this was based off of a disagreement of who should be in charge of that Islamic empire way back in the day. Again, sacred sites, the mosque is the most important for daily life. And then there is Jerusalem, Mecca, Medina. These are our 3 big ones here. Okay, our last big universalizing religion that we're going to talk about before we get into kind of some of the other small ones is Buddhism. Buddhism is the only non-theistic universalizing religions. Basically, they don't worship gods. There are no gods in Buddhism. It's more of a philosophy, to be very honest, than it is a religion. I mean, again, that's just me saying that. It's more about seeking one's truth, understanding it. We know where it started, present day Nepal. We know when it started, the 6th century. And it is started by a guy named Siddhartha Gautama. He was the teacher. He meditated, and he came to understand that there needs to be, again, just difference happening here. Of course, we know that there are 3 major branches, but 2 of which are actually practiced in large numbers. You got Theravada, which is the oldest surviving, and then the Mahayana. Theravada is going to be concentrated in Southeast Asia, in Sri Lanka, things like that. Mahayana is the Tibetan, so East Asia, and it's the Zen. Again, we're going to see that the monks that you see, the Dalai Lama, they're Mahayana Buddhists. Spread is first through contagious. Again, it just kind of like rockets its way through India really fast, and then it's relocation. You have monks and missionaries, and they move east out of India. They haven't gone very far. They're not as widespread as, say, Christianity, but they, again, are definitely, you can see Buddhism all across the Asian continent. Again, sacred sites, temples, or pagodas, as they're called, stupas, which are shrines, statues of Buddha, again, places where Buddha had revelations and things. Those are all sacred. East Asian ethnic religions, so going into some other of the more, I guess, niche religions, small scale. Don't know exactly who started them. Well, that's not 100% true. Again, distribution is small, diffusion is slower, relocation based. Okay, so you've got Shintoism. Shintoism is the Japanese religion based on nature, ancestor worship. It shares a lot of traditional ideas as just animism in general. Then there's Confucianism, which is based off of the philosopher Confucius, and it's kind of a belief system that's about ethics and family behavior that's located in China. You've got Taoism or Taoism. This is a philosophy based on living a peaceful life in tune with nature, the yin and yang. Again, there is good, there is bad, there has to be both for life to continue on. Also a Chinese idea. Okay. So this is just kind of a breakdown for you to kind of see where the numbers are at as far as world population and adherence. Again, these numbers aren't perfect, but they're going to give you as close as you need. So the largest is obviously Christianity, followed up by Islam. You can see the inner breakdown of Christianity there. Then you got Hindu, and then Buddhism, and then everything else is kind of small. Again, lumping things together, other religions, and on par with non-religious, which is going to be our secularism and again, atheism, agnosticism, things like that. Okay. So something that, again, we talked about briefly, but just getting into more detail, because again, I have seen in the past where they show pictures of these and you have to kind of make those connections, is the type of religious buildings and places. So I mentioned them in the sacred spaces item earlier, but with Christianity, excuse me, there's a kind of a set basic look to most Christian churches and cathedral, again, churches and all the things. A typical church is going to have a steeple. It might have like two bell towers as opposed to one. And the larger the spaces, if it's a cathedral, it's often going to have basilica, which is a big dome overall. Older churches were always set up in a cross, and with the altar being the top of the cross. Again, there would be like niches on both sides to create that if you laid it out on the ground. In Hindu, temples and shrines tend to have kind of like a rectangular shaped body, and they usually have lots of like towers with varying types of kind of displays and carvings in them. Again, with heads and deities. Remember, the Hinduism is polytheistic, lots of different gods and goddesses. Angkor Wat is a really good example of typical Hindu, again, temples. You've all seen Angkor Wat. It's a very famous building. It's in Cambodia. Buddhist, it varies. It depends on which branch you're looking at. Stupa is, again, a temple with a dome or a tower, and it features a pair of eyes, and that's more Nepalese and Tibetan, so Mahayana. Pagodas got these like winged roofs. So when you see kind of going more into East Asia, and some temples are even like really tall, they have like multiple stories and stuff like that. Buddhist temples, and they're often going to have like the lion statues outside of. You can see the influences of China there. Several towers, really thin, pointy looking. Okay, you can see these here. Okay, so again, on the bottom is where we're going to see, again, our various different versions here. You've got the lion statues. So these are the two on the bottom left are looking more at Buddhist. As far as that stuff goes, the various forms of Buddhist temples, again, stupas, things like that. The one on the bottom right is more Nepalese. So I think Mahayana, these domes with the tower plopped on top. Directly above that one at the very top with the stone and the lots of detail, that's looking at a Hindu. Again, that's Angkor Wat. That's, again, not Angkor Wat, but it's similar, again, in the fact that it's got towers and all of that carving and a lot of detail. Of course, in the upper left over there is a cathedral. You guys have all seen cathedrals before. So we're going to kind of move right along to Islam. And again, think about this process of mosque. So a mosque is, again, it takes lots of different forms, but they always have the same kind of basic components. One of which is there's like a central dome normally, and then there's minaret. A minaret are these narrow pointed towers, and they hold the muezzin. It used to be a person that would call people to pray the 5 times a day, but now it's a horn. So if you ever, again, see a movie and set in an Islamic city or a video game, I know video games, they oftentimes include this because it's again, a cool detail, but you'll hear like a big horn going off at intervals, and that's the call to prayer. They're always built facing towards Mecca. The most famous is the Al-Kaaba Mosque in Mecca, which is the open air with the big black cube in the middle that holds the sacred piece of Muhammad's life. Again, the third most is the Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem. This is eight-sided mosque with a high dome and a thin spire. There's also the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul, which is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. The architecture of the Islamic Empire, is like so stunning. Again, going back a slide, you can see, of course, our mosque in Mecca with our big cube in the middle, and then the minarets in the background. Judaic sacred space, synagogues. Synagogues don't really have a common design. The most holy, I guess, of them are going to be the western wall of the former Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. The Wailing Wall, which has its like foundations of the wall, are featured these large, big stones where Jews pray and they place written prayers into the cracks between the blocks. That is, again, in Jerusalem, center of their whole religion. So I just have two things left. One is the caste system, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Islamic states, because these are two huge impacts that religions have had, not just on the beliefs, but on every aspect of people's lives. So this whole process right here, and again, this is just a large scale piece. So this is Hinduism, going into more, again, detail. So Hinduism believes in the idea of reincarnation, that everyone is born in a certain social level within a caste, a social class. The Hindu scripture describes a cosmology, a belief in the structure of the universe that revolves around the idea of chakras. Chakras are levels that every person is born with. Again, it's these different sort of pieces. Again, this is very complex. Hinduism is not an easy religion to know if you're not born into it, but just know the basics here. So chakras are levels. Low, again, are animals, and then you've got humans, and then there's high animals that are sacred, like cattle or elephants, snakes. And then there's the ideas of karma and reincarnation that kind of work together. Us living in the human chakra have 5 levels or varnas. The top level, or the highest social class that you can have in Hindu society, is Brahmins. This is the religious group, the most holy, the most pure. Again, these people are really like the top. They've got the most responsibilities. They also have the easiest go of it in a lot of ways. The next is a Hindu word that I cannot say, but it's the kind of like the aristocratic. It used to be warrior class, but again, this is the modern age. We don't got warriors no more. This is where royalty, landowners, government leaders, the wealthy. The next class is merchants and professionals. So this is where you find doctors and lawyers, accountants, the middle ranking government. Probably a really famous middle class Indian is one, Mahatma Gandhi. And of course, the famous bespeckled tiny little Indian man who fought for their independence against the British. Then you got the Sundras, which are tradespeople, farmers. There's lots of little Shati, again, which is subcastes within the caste, depending on which job you have. And then Dalits and Untouchables, which are the lowest of the low. The thing about the caste system is this is a belief system that has existed as long as Hinduism, and Hinduism is the oldest religion in the world. This is, since independence, has been deemed illegal, but it still exists. People still believe this. They still, again, operate with the same sort of approach. So it's this kind of, what I'm getting at here is this fact that religion is, it can't be talked about totally separate from the other things that we've talked about. This is tied directly into politics and into the various different aspects of population and all of this kind of stuff. Religion is its own chapter because it needs its own chapter. Okay. The last thing that I'm going to talk a little bit about is Islamic State. So by now, again, Christianity had its day as influencing government, but really by now, most of the Christian governments have changed. They've gone through revolutions or they've gone through changes. That's not the case in Islam. Most states, thinking, of course, states in this instance is the political geography definition of country. Most of them are still all mixed up in the belief systems of Islam. When they began, they were theocracies, which are basically religious leaders are the people in charge. Iran has a religious council which serves as the head of state. They can overrule parliament, the president, they can make changes happen. There's republics and monarchies ruled by elected officials, various different things like that. Again, just showing you the different kinds of Islamic states that are out there. Theocracies still exist. You've got some which have moved on and changed, similar to Christian states as they were. Again, moving into monarchies, republics, allowing people to change. But, there is still law based off of Islam. Sharia law is Islamic law based off the Quran, the Hadith, which is another, again, writing by Muhammad. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Yemen, they're all going to fit into this. And then the final step of this are secular, secular being not religious. So there is no religious connection here, and they are going to lean more heavily on the, I guess, the foreign influence that was there. Religion is still, again, present in a lot of government policy, but there's more conflict and questioning about it. Turkey in particular, yep, very controversial. Jordan, another. Um, Again, when we talk about all of this stuff, I like that I put 5 pillars. If you want them, ask them. I already put them in there. Syncretic religions are putting a bunch of different religions kind of together. The Druze, the Sikhism is Sikhism. I apologize for saying that weird. Sikhism is another that's kind of a weird combo between Islam and Hindu. It's got like this weird mashup going on. There's a bunch of those that are out there. Well, you have to know them. I would be shocked, but you never know. So that's it for the day. Again, before tomorrow, 1 p.m., you got to look through your religion and ethnicity stuff and post to Classroom. Please, again, try and make sure that your posts are questions or being specific about what you want to know. Figuring out exactly what it is that needs to be talked about and what can go by the wayside. Look out on Friday. We're going to try and do another more interactive review game thing. Read the directions carefully when that time comes to make sure that you're getting your stuff done as you should. By Monday, you're going to post any tips and tricks. Again, there's a handful of things in the culture unit that I don't have tips or tricks for you for because I'm maybe not as creative as I could be sometimes. But if you are, that's great. Again, obviously, this is going to be a more challenging post for some of you guys because you guys are already posted websites. Again, we're looking for specifics, things that are just for culture, that can help you understand better various terms or concepts or ideas. How do you remember the languages? How do you remember the difference between acculturation, assimilation? Again, any of that stuff, it's what I'm looking for. And then you should start getting yourself prepped for Unit 4 and started next week. And that's what I got. I hope you guys have a good day.